Hey everyone, so I just want to put some quick announcements before every episode going forward, just so everyone's on the same page about some things. Number one, if you want to support the show, the most direct way you can do so is go to ko-fi.com/MWP News, or just go to MWPnews.com and click the link on there. We have a Ko-Fi, you can donate to it, and all the proceeds go to doing cool things on this show. That's the first thing. That's the best way to support. Number two, the other way you can support is by buying the books I've written. I've written a lot at this point, quite a few. The issue is, due to the new AI scraping that Amazon is doing, namely scraping the content to create AI summaries for people, rather than asking the authors to just provide a summary of the series up until that point, or as it's commonly called, the back cover of the book, or the description as it's listed on on Amazon. We're going to be moving off of Amazon. We are going to be incrementally moving the books off of Amazon to Barnes & Noble Press. This is going to lead to one issue, and I think we're going to figure out another way to do EPUB versions, so that way it's not just on Nook for digital copies, but physical copies will be available through Barnes & Noble Press. The release date for that is TBD. We'll be starting with some of the more popular books and then moving into some of the less popular books. I assume we'll be starting with In the End. I assume we'll be starting with Swan Song. I assume we'll be starting with The Depths of Winter. We'll be starting there. We will be moving on from there. These are going to have special branding. And then once we hit anniversaries, the new editions will have special branding too. But we will, there'll be updates when the time comes. As of right now, we don't have anything concrete to announce, but the fact that we will not be using Amazon anymore going forward. If you want to support the show more directly, you can go to ko-fi.com/MWP News. We'll have a list on there of the goals we have. Thank you for your continued support, and enjoy this episode. Good morning and welcome to Jesus Christ. 30-minute reviews. I am Adam on this. We're finally starting to get back to regular weather. I'll put it that way. It's been a very bizarre Memorial Day weekend, with the cold and all that. But we're starting to get back on track. Happy Memorial Day. And what we're here to talk about today is something that happened last week. Something kind of unprecedented for Marvel, but I wouldn't say unprecedented for Disney. So, last week, it was announced that Marvel would be delaying both Doomsday and Secret Wars to December of 2026 and 2027, respectively. Now, this kind of put a little bit of a wrench in the release slate, because, let's just go through what else is coming out. In 2026, on that date, you also have, You also have Ice Age 7, I think, but that's also Disney now. Blue Sky is owned by Disney, I believe, under the Fox acquisition. So I don't think that's something that's likely to, that's likely to stay there. I think Disney's going to move that. And then also you have, on that same day, Dune Messiah, and the week before, Shrek 5. So it's kind of a packed time. Now, I think that Shrek 5 is going to end up moving. I think, I don't think Disney is as committed to Ice Age as their other properties, even though they own it. I think it's just kind of we have this, it's kind of a feather in our cap, but we're not going to make it our big deal. So I think that will end up moving. I mean, even if that got punted to Disney Plus, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. But I think that that's something else is going to end up moving. And I think Shrek's going to end up moving, just out of the way. And Dune Messiah, I don't think that Dune comes out opposite Doomsday. I don't think that's a good move for Warner Brothers. Then the next year, the big release on December, because it's that weekend that Disney loves, the weekend that Avatar and Star Wars comes out. That weekend is Lord of the Rings, The Search for Gollum, which is the new Andy Serkis directed live-action Lord of the Rings movie. And I think that ends up moving too. Off Secret Wars date. Now, that's not the weird thing, because I think that if you're Disney, you want to give a lot of runway to these movies, because I think that these movies are not going to have the cultural cachet that Infinity War and Endgame did. Like, I don't think Infinity War and Endgame, like, this is not going to do those numbers without a ton of help. And I think that giving them the runway of the Christmas weekend plus the month of January being kind of open is going to bring it over that threshold in a way that, like, it helped. It wasn't the only reason why The Force Unleashed did as well as it did, but it certainly didn't help. And, like, even the shitty Star Wars movie that had that runway, The Rise of Skywalker, did it cross $1 billion, or did it just get close to $1 billion? Either way, it made a fuck ton of money. So the idea that, like, we want to have this space makes sense to me. I understand it. So the question that I have is, what's going on at the other end of the slate? Because here's the thing. Doomsday and Secret Wars have not moved in either years or they've never moved. I seem to recall these have always been the dates. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they just got moved back a year each at some point. No, because that was the thing that they were talking about. I've said they should have moved them back, because you could then have Secret Wars come out on the 20th anniversary, because it's coming out in 2027 instead of 2028. So this has always been the case. So this is kind of the weird situation we find ourselves. And now the 20th anniversary is going to be the soft reboot with the Mutant Saga, which, okay, fine. Now, the weird thing is Disney not only loves that week before Christmas, they also love the first week of May. Because since, as far back as I can remember, which I think will go back to the Avengers, that's been that slot. The Avengers, Iron Man 3. I don't think that was Memorial Day week. I think that was there. All of that. So what are they putting in the spot? And I'm not saying, this is going to sound bad when I say it out loud. They're putting Devil Wears Prada 2 in that slot, which I don't think is necessarily the best choice for a few reasons. Number one, the next week there's a Colleen Hoover adaptation. So these two movies are going to be directly in competition with each other. This is not, these two movies are directly in competition a week later. I don't know why you would do that. Devil Wears Prada 2 also feels kind of like Freakier Friday to me in concept, where it's like, I don't really need a sequel to this thing that I saw years ago. I'm fine with there never being a sequel. And the fact that you're making a sequel makes me think you should probably just put this out on Disney Plus. Or, like, there have been tons of these lately. Like, Alexander Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Fever by the Dozen, the remake with Zach Braff. Like, these things are all kind of feel like, or Home Sweet Home Alone. These all feel like they, like, Disney Plus projects. I mean, and several of them were Disney Plus projects, but, like, Devil Wears Prada 2 very much feels like that. And look, right now they have no one attached to it. Right now I don't think they've signed Meryl Streep. I don't think they've signed Anne Hathaway. I don't think they've signed, Stanley Tucci, I think, said, I heard they're doing it, but I'm not attached yet. Like, no one from that movie is formally attached yet, which again puts them in this weird situation. This is like last year at Moana 2, where it's like they announced it, and then like Auli Caravallo was like, "Wait, really? We're doing that? Okay, cool." And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like I hear this and I'm like, okay. Now the other thing is, I don't understand why the Mandalorian and Grogu is not moving up. Because here's the thing. I understand why they're not moving up Starfighter. I can understand the logic behind Starfighter saying on its date in 2027. They want it to correspond with the 50th anniversary of A New Hope. That's their goal. They want those two things associated. And I think that they're very confident in that. I don't understand why you don't put the Mandalorian and Grogu on that first week of May. Because here's the other thing you have to take into consideration. because this has historically been an Avengers slot since the announcement, May 2026 was going to be an Avengers movie. Even when it was just Untitled Avengers movie, even when it was Avengers The Kang Dynasty, it was always Avengers 5 is coming out on this date. So give it a nice wide berth. We will keep this area empty. This is going to be, we don't want anything caught up in that. So why is it that we're watching this and we're like, yeah, so you know what? We're gonna put Devil Wears Prada 2 there, because it's like Devil Wears Prada 2. I feel like is a good midsummer movie. Like this feels like a good July-August movie, especially looking at the slate for 2026. There's there's like a kind of a chasm of movies that are more female-centric in the summer. If you put that out in July when you're in the heat of all these other things, that's something that could get an audience. That's something that, didn't Barbie come out in June or July? July, yeah. And look how that did. Like, you would think you would try to put this in there somewhere to be like, oh, look, we're going to try, like, if we make movies for the female audience and we put them out here, that'll be great. And it's like, it's just weird to put it there because that spot, because you've left so much empty room on either side, you could have put Mandalorian and Grogu there and had a massive opening weekend and then carried through. Because I think the next competition it has is 2 weeks after its current release date. Because that's another thing that studios have been steering clear from. Oh, they're putting out a Star Wars movie at the end of May. Okay, so we have to give let's give a week in between that and, where we are now. And then we will, we'll have that space, and then we'll release this. And it's just weird to me that you're going to take this giant empty space and give it to a movie that is not shot yet. I don't even know if there's an official script yet. And you're going to give it to that. You're like, well, Devil Wears Prada 2, that's going to go here. And, look, nothing at Devil Wears Prada 2. I think there's a better date for it. But I don't think that giving it this size of a runway is going to make it make more money. It's not like it's going to suddenly be, this huge, expansive thing. It's going to make as much money now as, it's going to make as much money when it comes out, as it will anywhere else. You can give it this extra space. It's not going to suddenly be like, and, well, here we go. Here's all this, here's all this extra money we found lying in the couch cushions. No, you have to give it, it's just kind of a weird decision. I get you want to put it in that slot, but then even then, it's like putting it up against the Colleen Hoover adaptation. That makes sense to put the week after the Avengers. That makes sense there. Because if you put it there, then you can have, okay, well, we expect this is going to pull its audience anyway, and that audience may not have entire overlap with the Avengers. So people will go see the Avengers still, and then you also have this, which is for, adults. It makes sense to me. I think the better choice here that I'm not entirely sure why they didn't take, it's two roads diverged, and they took the road less traveled. I feel like you should have moved Mandalorian and Grogu up and then put the movie that you haven't shot yet there. Unless, and I think that there's also the possibility we could read into this, which it's shocking to me that we haven't seen anyone try this interpretation yet. Is there something behind the scenes in Mandalorian and Grogu that we don't know about that could influence it, being able to move up 2 weeks? Because we've heard time and time again, the movie shot. And again, because Pedro Pascal is a guy, and the movie, and, it's a mostly, white cast, with the exception of, Carl Weathers, this movie and this show has been kind of exempt from a lot of the criticisms, rampant and unfair criticisms that have been levied against other Star Wars projects. So the idea that, we have to sit here and we haven't heard anything about behind-the-scenes stuff. But I think the fact that The Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out on the same date and not moving up could be indicative of something happening behind the scenes. That the outrageosphere is not digging into because, well, it's a man lead, so let's just let this sit where it is. So let's not dig into it. But we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.